Hi everyone, welcome to Making Multifamily Money. So today I'm very excited to bring on Savannah Arroyo. Hey Savannah, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you for making this work. Really appreciate you waking up at 6 a.m. Pacific time to be here. So yeah, to kind of start, can you kind of please tell us about yourself and where you kind of started and what got you into real estate investing?
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna kind of go back a little bit and share a little bit of my background as a registered nurse. I really knew right out of high school that I wanted to go into nursing, and so out of college, I was pursuing my nursing degree. And after I graduated, I worked in a couple different specialties, and was naturally gravitating towards process improvement and leadership roles. And I love operational aspects of the healthcare system, and so really shortly after I graduated, I went back to school and I got my master's degree in nursing leadership and administration and started to climb the corporate ladder within a large healthcare system down in Los Angeles, California, and had my eyes set on becoming the chief nursing officer. That was my goal at the time. And beginning of 2020, after having my second daughter, my priorities really started to shift. And my husband and I came together and we're looking at our finances and also our time. And we were working both very demanding Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 jobs. And we just really wanted to be more involved in our daughter's lives than that. But we realized we were only dependent on our W-2 income. And so it didn't really allow a lot of flexibility in our lives. So we started looking at different ways that we could invest, that we could start growing wealth. At that time, the thing we were putting 15 to 20% of our paychecks towards our retirement accounts, which is huge. That's a big chunk of money. And it just felt so defeating that we couldn't touch it until we were 59 and a half. And so we started looking at alternative ways to grow our wealth and stumbled upon real estate for obvious reasons. It's one of the best ways out there to grow wealth. And with that, we started in single family homes and then quickly after shifted into multifamily syndications.
Wow. Okay. A lot to unpack there. So first of all, really love your journey. You know, for those who don't know, nursing specifically in California, it's very lucrative. I think California is probably one of the highest paying markets specifically for nursing. And you know, as you kind of alluded to before, people typically start off with like an RN or a BSN degree, and then from there you usually work a couple years. And if you want to pursue leadership, which you did, you get the master's degree. And what I love about that, it's kind of similar to my journey. I'm a pharmacy director currently, so I really understand that we talk about process improvement and leadership role. I guess the question I kind of want to hit on was like, when you graduate from nursing school, did you come out of any student debt, or how did that look like for you upon graduation?
Yeah, I did have student loans. I had probably about 20,000 from undergrad and about 20,000 from my master's program. And so for me, I was very motivated to pay that off. And so yeah, I mean, I was making good money coming out of nursing school. I think I was like 24, making $80,000 a year. So with very minimal expenses, and I was getting my master's degree. And so I was being very diligent with that money and putting a lot of it to pay down that student loan debt.
Okay, got it. And then did you have a specific plan to kind of pay off your student loan debt? Like, could you kind of share with the audience like what your kind of your plan was?
Not necessarily. My goal was just to pay it off as quickly as possible. So really any extra money that I got after I was already putting that 15 to 20% towards my retirement account, I felt like, okay, I was doing my duty to kind of save and with that respect. And so any extra money at that point, I mean, it could be anywhere like $1,000 a month that I was putting towards my student loans.
Okay, great. Yeah, you say it so casually, but what people need to take from that is, you know, despite you still are saving 15 to 20%, right?
Yeah.
You're saving for your future, but on top of that, you're still putting away like 1,000, whatever extra to pay off student loans and also pay for your living expense. So a lot of people don't have that discipline. It sounds like you're kind of like me. You're kind of like a natural saver. But a lot of people are not that way, right? They whatever they bring in is what they bring out. And you probably see it a lot, right? Like when I graduated pharmacy school, everyone wants a new BMW, new Audi, Tesla now, and just fancy vacations and you just blow it off. And then 10 years flies by, you still got your student loans. so,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
cool. I guess kind of from perspective, did you kind of overlap a bit where you were working as a nurse and buying real estate, and like how did kind of that look like?
Yeah, I definitely was. I was pretty much working two full-time jobs for a couple of years. So I was working full-time in administration throughout the COVID pandemic as a nurse manager, and it was very eye-opening to see a lot of the different financial conversations that I was having with my team. I had nurses coming to me asking how to set up their retirement as their nurse manager, and it just there wasn't a lot of resources for healthcare professionals in terms of building wealth and investing in that type of stuff, which has really led to the creation of my startup, Invest Health. But in terms of real estate investing, but at the end of 2020, November 2020, that's when I launched my personal brand, Networth Nurse, and created those outlets on social media and started showcasing my journey and just being super transparent with, hey, I'm new at real estate investing. I'm getting started. This is what I'm doing. I'm also a nurse and a mom, and I'm doing this with my husband, and just being very open with my following and community. And so I started capital raising end of 2020 and didn't walk away from my full-time nursing career until October 2021. So in that time, I was working full-time administration, so Monday through Friday. And so waking up at 5 a.m. to record 6 a.m. podcasts, and on my lunch break, having calls with investors. And then when we would get home, my husband and I do dinner, bath time, bedtime with our daughters, but then from like 8 to midnight every night, grinding on the business and coming together and trying to build it, buy these real estate deals. So it was a lot of work initially, but it's definitely paid off. I've been able to walk away from my full-time job, and so has my husband recently.
Wow. Yeah, that's inspirational because, a lot of people say you can't like do both, right? Like, I'm
Hmm.
too busy. That's always the number one excuse that I hear from people. And like, if you think about it, you and your husband were basically working full time, right?
Hmm.
And Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
So, some nurses do 312s, but management's usually, 5/8,
Yeah.
right? And on top of that, you're raising two daughters.
Hmm.
And on top of that, like you said, you had to put in the extra effort where it's not fun, right? Waking up at 5 a.m. to go on podcasts. You have lunch breaks, meal breaks, after work, on the commute home. Like, we're just constantly working and grinding. So, thanks for sharing that. That's really inspirational. And love what you said about building the personal brand. I was the type to kind of be behind the scenes. That's my nature, my personality. And I was just like, oh, you got to share. And I wish I shared sooner. So really, really crazy. So let's dive into the real estate. So I guess, when did you get your first single family home, and what did that kind of look like?
Yeah, so when we discovered real estate investing beginning of 2020, we were hooked on it and we were sold. And that was really knowing that real estate investing would provide us the financial freedom was the motivation to grind through those extra hours. I mean, we started learning about it and educating ourselves on it, and we were like, this is it. Like, this is the ticket out to our full-time W-2s to have the life that we want. Like, we were completely sold on it. And so at that point, not really having any real estate background or knowing anyone doing it, it was kind of starting to build up some of our own resources. And we didn't have any money to start investing in real estate, and so we had to get really kind of resourceful, and we realized we had equity in our primary residence. This is how new I was at real estate investing. I didn't even know what equity was in our primary. I didn't know you could tap into it through a second mortgage. I didn't know what appreciation question.
Yeah. Hey, so welcome back to Making Multifamily Money. So I guess the question is, what got you started investing in single family homes, and what type of time frame was that?
Yeah, so really right after we started learning about real estate investing at the beginning of 2020, we were hooked. Like, we were learning about this information, how to leverage debt, grow wealth. It was information that we were consuming, and we're like, this is it. This is really the ticket to financial freedom and the life that we really wanted to create. And so we were sold on real estate investing, but we didn't have any money to start investing at first. And we realized at the time that we had equity in our primary residence. And this is how new we were at real estate investing. We didn't even know what equity was or appreciation. We didn't understand those terms before we started learning about it. And then once we started learning about real estate investing, we're like, oh, we can tap into this equity to buy more income producing assets, which as you're getting started and you're brand new, sharing this type of information with people who don't know about real estate investing would say that is extremely risky. Don't do it. And that's why it's so important to network and talk to other real estate investors, because any other real estate investor was like, oh, if you have $100,000 that you can take out at a 3.5 interest rate and use it to invest in real estate, do it. Take as much money out as you can. And so, for us, we took out a second mortgage on our primary, used it as a down payment for 2 single family homes over in Atlanta, Georgia. We're based in Los Angeles, California, and those were build to rent projects, pretty turnkey, cash flowing like $150 a month. And at the time we were like, okay, this is great. We were kind of getting into real estate investing, but honestly, one turnover in that property, and we had to do a new paint job that was like $5,000, and it literally, I mean, it depleted all of our cash flow. And so since then, we've been investing in alternative investments like multifamily syndications. In the multifamily space, there's a lot of ways that you can mitigate risk just because of sheer quantity of the numbers that you're dealing with in the multifamily.
Okay, great. Oh, wow. A lot to unpack there. So what I love about the story, so basically, like most people with, W-2 jobs, we want to buy a house for ourselves, right? A house for our families. I mean, what did that look like? Did you just do conventional 10% down, or did you just do your typical 20% down? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, so buying my primary residence was right after I moved to Los Angeles, California. I moved there in 2015, and everyone at the time was like, there's no way you can buy a house in LA. You just can't do it. But I was working 2 jobs. I was working full-time in the hospital, so 312s, and then I was working at a surgery center over in Beverly Hills, 8-hour shifts. And so I would literally go in for my shift from like 5:30 to 2 in the morning, come home, take a nap, and then go from 7 p.m. to 7 a. I did that a couple times a week, just grinding to get the money to use as a down payment on the house. And so I did a 3.5% down FHA loan to buy that in 2016. I paid $445,000 for my 3-bedroom, 3-bath townhome in LA, which is now worth, over $700,000. Super great investment. And right now I'm actually midterm rentaling it. I turned it into a midterm rental, and I'm renting that out to travel nurses and house hacking my way into $1 million home up here in NorCal. So I'm using all the cash flow from that midterm rental, which is over $3,000 a month. And it's essentially allowing me to live rent free in a way nicer house up in NorCal.
Okay, wow, wow. So we did the reverse. I started in NorCal and then went to SoCal.
Funny.
Yeah. I grew up around the San Jose area. So,
Okay.
but no, okay. Why I wanted to ask that is because people always see the end picture first, but they don't realize what the journey was. And I
Yes.
want to emphasize the journey, and it's a long journey, right? You started in 2015, and even before that, you were working 2 jobs, which is very common for nursing, for those who don't know, right? Because a lot of them do 312s. There's a lot of OT, double OT opportunities if you have
Yeah.
sick calls. So usually nurses will take advantage of it, and I don't blame them. I would if I can get double OT. But you were working 2 jobs and saving money, paying off student loans, and you saved 3.5%
Hmm.
to pay for a 450K house, essentially,
Hmm.
or townhouse. And why that's really smart is because a lot of people can't even do that, right? Like your down payment must have been like what, a couple thousand, maybe like maybe $8,000. You kind of do the math off the top of my head, and just having that discipline of doing that, like not many people have that. So I love that story. And when you first bought, were you house hacking it? So were you living in one room and then renting out other rooms, or was it just kind of for you and your family?
Yeah, so was house hacking it. It was around 15,000, is 3.5%. So yeah, saved up that chunk, worked with a really good lender who made the deal happen with me, which when you work with good lenders, they do that. So that's a good tip if you're coming out into the real estate space, find a great lender. And so I was living with my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, and another roommate. And so we all just kind of transitioned from the 2-bedroom apartment that we were living in into this house. And so I had my husband helping with some of the rent, and then also our roommate that was helping with it too.
Perfect. Yeah. Why I emphasize that is because I got started in house hacking too. And that's where everyone gets started in house hacking. You work a W-2 job, lenders will typically like you, right? So you can do these highly leveraged loans where I started off with 10%, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can do even less, as you alluded to, 3.5%. And the key is just to own that piece of, real estate. You have to pay rent anyways. You might as well pay yourself, and then you were, I guess, boyfriend hacking at the time. You can charge your boyfriend helps out a little bit, and then you had another roommate. So you were kind of sacrificing your comfort because a lot of couples they just want to live by themselves, and I get it, right? Like you want to live by yourselves, enjoy your lives. You work hard, right? You work 2 jobs. Why not go home and relax? So why I share that is because success leaves clues, right? A lot of people I interviewed start the same exact way. Low down payment, single family home, primary residence, house hacking. It's not humble, but it's how you lay your foundation of wealth. And then, as you kind of alluded to earlier, let's just dive into appreciation in California is crazy for those who don't know, right? So, you went from 450 to 700 in, probably about 6-7 years. I experienced the same thing when I bought my first single family home in Northern California. I bought for 800,000 and appreciate to 1.3 million. That's five. That's people. I share that because people don't realize how crazy it is. But for the most part in California, you typically, as a long-term rental, will kind of break even or be slightly negative, just because the rents aren't going to be, that crazy high. Relatively speaking, it's more of like an appreciation play. But what you did was you didn't do long-term rent. You did a midterm rental. Let's kind of dive into that. I guess what got you into midterm rentals and how did you kind of advertise the rooms?
Yeah. So a big jump from kind of what I was doing with the multifamily syndications and then even the long-term rentals. But once you get into the real estate space and start networking and talking to other people, I'm very involved. I have a Facebook group. It's healthcare professionals investing in real estate. And my co-admin with the group, Alex Sabio, he's a respiratory therapist down in LA as well. And he is very into the short-term rental space. And we've just networked with a lot of people in the midterm rental space. And so it was hearing a bunch of different Zoom meetups. I mean, they're on my YouTube channel and stuff from people talking about how they're doing this. I'm renting to travel nurses, especially throughout the COVID pandemic. And just the difference between cash flow when you switch from long-term rental to midterm rental is insane. So for example, that 3-bedroom, 3-bath townhome that I have in Los Angeles, California, if I were to put long-term renters in there, I would maybe clear about 3,000 in rent. And that would, for me, my mortgage is 2,400. I have a second mortgage on there. So the $300, so overall 2,700 goes to debt. So I wouldn't really be cash flowing too much if I made it into a long-term rental. Midterm rental, I am able, because there's 2 master suites up on the 3rd level. It's a tri-level home. And then on the 2nd level, there's a room and a bathroom. So I've split each room into its own private room and private bathroom. That's how I advertise it. And I get $2,000 a month per room now. So now I'm cash flowing $6,000 a month. That's an extra $3,000. And this is a lot different than short-term rentals in a sense that it's not a lot of turnover. First off, I can't even do short-term rentals in my community because my HOA that I have won't let me. So it has to be over 30-day stay. And so the tenants that are coming in here usually staying months at a time. So the wear and tear on the actual property itself and then what I'm spending on turning and cleaning is a lot less than you would spend on short-term rentals. So it's been a really great investment strategy for us. And honestly, it came out of the fact that we were in Los Angeles, California. I mean, in the Valley, we were in Van Nuys, so not in a super nice area in LA. And we have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old and just a growing family. It was a small townhome, no yard. And it was just, we wanted something else. And so we went to lenders to try and buy a house up in NorCal, and they said no, 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 because I quit my full-time nursing job last year. And so now I don't have all that W-2 income. And although we're making a lot of income from our real estate right now, because all the LLCs are less than 2 years old, we're still semi-new, that the lenders want to see more. We weren't going to be able to qualify for the house that we wanted to live in. And so it was kind of coming back, hearing no, no, no again and again, and coming back to the drawing board and being like, okay, well, how can we make this work? Like, how do we do it? And then we realized, oh, let's house hack this, do midterm rental. I mean, real estate investing is just so powerful when you start to learn about it and how you can utilize it in your life. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. Very inspirational story as well. I mean, what was your kind of typical average length of stay for the midterm rental nurses, and how'd you advertise it?
So I'm still fairly new. I've just been doing it almost 3 months now. So I have it listed on Furnish Finder and Airbnb. I'm learning so much every day. I'm like updating my house rules with different things that tenants are like, hey, make sure the other guests are emptying the lint thing on the dryer, so now I have to add that to my house rule. So I'm definitely evolving that and still learning, but average length of stay, I would say, is probably 3 months. I have my 2 rooms. I had a 4-month contract and then a 6-month contract I have in there now. But before that, I had a month. And then my downstairs room, I had a month, and then I have now someone coming in there for 6 months, which will be a lot better. But traveling, I have mostly traveling nurses. I have one guy that's down there for a pest control contract, like a seasonal type thing. And so he's there for 6 months. And so rented it out to him. But I like to advertise for nurses because I just really focus on the fact that it's clean and quiet. And so I just really emphasize that for my guests.
Got it, got it. And I guess the question I had was, are you managing that yourself, or are you hiring a company to do that?
Yep, I'm managing it. And so we actually have property managers on all of our other assets. We always have on all of our apartment buildings and even those single family homes in Atlanta. So this is the first one that we've been kind of managing. But the platforms like Airbnb and Furnish Finder make it fairly easy and make it pretty streamlined. We have a keyless entry on the front door so people can swap out codes. We have a Ring camera. So we're leveraging technology and a lot of it to make it super easy. For instance, I had guests that moved in and they wanted a blender. And so I had Amazon send one the next day. I mean, if it was something more urgent than that, I could have Instacart deliver something within, a couple hours from Walmart down the street or something. But yeah, there's a lot of ways that we're leveraging tech to make it easy to manage out of miles away.
Got it. No, thanks for sharing that. Man, you're kind of inspiring me now. I should convert some of my long-term rentals that barely cash flow to some midterm and actually make cash flow. So, okay, great. Yeah, well, I asked that was because you're basically managing it from, far away,
Yes.
remotely, right? And, in California, typically it's going to be a little common to self-manage your own rentals, at least from my experience, because like you said, if your profit margins are thin, and if you have good tenants that stay there for a long time, you build systems in
Mhm.
place. So you had keyless entry, you had cameras. We have Amazon, which even for people themselves, they order an Amazon because everyone gets too comfortable now. Like even myself, I need something, Amazon comes in 1 or 2 days. Don't even
Yeah.
have to lift a finger. So glad you shared that. So let's kind of dive into those turnkey single family homes that you bought out of state. So what made you pick Atlanta, Georgia, and what made you lean into that turnkey model?
Yeah, so at the time we were looking to do the BRRRR method because we had a fixed amount of capital. So we had about 80,000, and so we were thinking, how can we use that to grow the fastest and scale kind of a portfolio? And we were looking at the BRRRR method, which I'm sure the majority of people are very familiar with. So you're buying it, rehabbing it, forcing equity into it, renting it out, and then refinancing to go and essentially pull out all the capital that you had into it since you forced equity into it. And so then you can take that money and buy another property. And then at that point, you have tenants in there that are paying down your loan. So you're cash flowing. So it's a really cool model to get started investing in real estate. And we were looking at Atlanta, Georgia, because it's difficult to buy in Los Angeles, the price point entry. So we were looking at Atlanta, Georgia, just because we had some friends moving over there from Los Angeles. The entertainment industry in LA was moving big over there, like Marvel, Netflix, Tyler Perry, Dwayne Johnson. Like we just saw a lot of growth over there. And we've just seen what the entertainment industry has done for Los Angeles. And so we were looking over there, and as we were looking at these burb properties over and over again, and just how much renovation and rehab they would need, and my husband and I coming into this with no real estate investing experience, although we felt like, okay, we can make it work, and we're listening to Bigger Pockets and hearing all these people make it work, for us, it was a little bit out of our comfort zone, in a sense of like, okay, we have 2 kids under the age of 2, we're working full-time jobs, like how stressful is this going to be for us? And so at that point, we decided to go into the turnkey properties just so that we could get into something and start growing our portfolio.
Okay, great. Yeah, I kind of knew the answer, but I wanted to hear your thought process. And what I loved about your answer was you basically did an analysis, right? Like, hey, we all know about this bird method, but this may not work for everyone in its different situations, right? Like you were working full time, as you alluded to. You were taking care of 2 young kids, right? That's when they start to like run around.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
just that in itself is difficult. So you just did the risk analysis and said, you know what? We want to get into real estate, but to kind of dip our toes instead of diving head first.
Yeah.
So the way that people start, and high income W-2s typically start this way, myself included, is buying turnkey real estate out of state and it being a little passive, right? Like all you do is you analyze the deal, you need property management there, and then from there you just know what the rents are, and then you calculate your cash on cash return or how much your monthly cash flow is. So it's very simple. They're not like home run deals, I'll be honest, but it's a little base hit that over the span of years, as you're alluding to, maybe it's a growing market, with entertainment going there. So it's just more of a like 5 to 10 year play is what I typically call it, right? It's not going to retire you immediately, but it kind of lays the foundation where 10 years later it can grow into something big where you're building equity, maybe rents go up, the cash flow increases, and you can 1031 exchange those into bigger apartment complexes. So love sharing that that story. So okay, let's really fast forward now. So what does kind of your portfolio look like today, and maybe from there we can kind of go backwards from there.
Yeah, so we do the multifamily syndication. So in syndications, we're pooling together different resources from investors. And so we partner with a lot of investors who want to passively invest in real estate. And so syndications is pooling together with passive investors and active investors to go out and buy these larger deals that couldn't be bought on your own. And so that's what we're doing in that space. Since we've started, we've done a 12 unit, a 24 unit, an 18 unit, and a 36 unit. Those are all up in Oregon. We've done those over the last couple of years. I've raised over $3.5 million, mostly from healthcare professionals, to go and buy those. They are performing very, very well. We're proceeding all of our projections for our investors thus far. And then we have a storage facility that we partnered on down in Arizona. And then right now we're still looking for more multifamily deals.
Okay, great. I guess my question is like, how was that transition from single family home to syndication? Like what got you into it? How'd you learn, and how was it like?
Yeah, so after we bought those first couple of single family homes, we were like, okay, what's next? What can we do next? We wanted to keep building and buying real estate, but we didn't have any money. And so started learning about different alternative strategies. Real estate syndications provide the opportunity to use other people's money, which the concept at the time seemed so foreign to us. It seemed very almost, we were very skeptical about it. Like it just seemed a little weird. Okay, why would you go use other people's money to go buy real estate? But then as you start learning more about real estate investing and how it works, it's people putting together different skill sets to go out there and do this. And so after kind of learning more about it, and we and even kind of growing some interest from friends and family after we were buying those single family homes, people coming to us like, oh, hey, you guys are getting into real estate. What does that kind of look like? And then having those conversations and opening it up to people in our lives who might want to partner with us on deals. So, moving into the transition, we did invest heavily into a coaching program. We spent $30,000 on a real estate syndication coaching program. That's more than my master's degree. But for us, we knew that this would be worth it. And that if we were going to be in a position where we were building a business out of this and raising other people's money to buy real estate, that we wanted to make sure that we were doing it the right way. And so for us, it was very worth it to invest that money into a coaching program where we're working with people with decades of experience going out and buying multifamily real estate, and they could really help us coach us into these investments.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm glad you shared about the coaching program because it has a lot of stigma. A lot of these gurus and mentorship coaching program, they said, why would you spend, 15 to 30 to 50K on a coaching program? But kind of my response, because I came from the same thing, I joined a 15K coaching program, but the moment I joined, I scaled to 90 units,
Mm-hmm.
and then I didn't go the syndication route. I just did self-funded. But for me, it just I just need that little push. It was just nice to know that I could ask someone more experienced how to do it. Because, it's the same process, right? You're not reinventing the wheel. You can learn a lot of free stuff online, right?
Mm-hmm.
Through my YouTube channel, through Bigger Pockets, through multiple things. But, a lot of it's really just following someone's system, right? If someone developed a system where you can follow 70 to 80% of it, or be just as good as them about 70, 80%, like why would you not pay to expedite that road? They can mitigate some pitfalls that you fall into that honestly probably saved me more than my course already. Because with multifamily, you make a mistake. You're messing with, if you make a mistake in one multifamily, it costs way more compared to single family, right? If I renovate the kitchen with the more expensive material in a 20 unit, times your cost by 20 in terms of your mistake. So it's always nice to kind of have someone looking over your shoulder, like analyzing the deal with you, sharing their contacts with you so that, you're kind of ahead of the curve. So you're basically paying, what I describe it is to expedite your own journey, your own path. You can either do it yourself and take longer, or you can learn from someone else's mistakes and, get there a little bit slower. So that's really what you prioritize. If you have the money, you can afford to pay down I call it the ignorance tax. You can pay down your ignorance tax. If you don't have the money, that's fine too. You just have to pay the ignorance tax via more time and more mistakes. So it really depends on your situation, right? Like if you have money, you can pay it down. If you don't, well, you have to put time in and maybe put in some effort, giving someone else value and putting your time in. So glad that you shared that. It gets a bad rap, but that's where I kind of got started. It just kind of gave me the confidence to do it. But once you kind of join, you're just kind of like, oh, this seems kind of obvious, but in the moment, it just kind of surrounding yourself with people who are doing it. Like when I joined, everyone was buying apartment complexes. I felt abnormal not owning an apartment complex. And long and behold, after 6 months of doing the program, guess what happened to me? I own an apartment complex.
Yeah.
So really love that you shared that. I guess my next question is, what got you investing in the Oregon market? Like, what kind of got you interested in that market? You're from California, like myself. Like, what intrigued you with Oregon?
Yeah, we were really at the time just running numbers for practice and sourcing deals from all over the country to see what different markets looked like, and really just to get practice underwriting when we first were starting. And we were looking in Oregon just because I have family up there and we kind of know some of the markets. And so we were just kind of comparing them and looked online and found a deal. I forget. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the website on it, but it's where people joke that deals go to die. But that's where what was it?
LoopNet or Crexy?
Yeah, LoopNet. And we found a great deal there and the numbers looked right. And we're like, oh, this looks good. And we kind of brought it back to our coach and talking through it and talked to the broker. And the broker at the time, he was very new too. So he was young, hungry, Marcus and Millichap broker. And for us being brand new in the space, it can be hard to get credibility with brokers, especially in multifamily. I probably called 30 different brokers telling them what we were wanting to do, and the deal flow we were getting was like, okay. And you have to take into consideration that a lot of these brokers are working with experienced investors that they have great relationships with. And so a lot of the deals are going to those people. And so when you're coming in new to it and brokers don't know if you can get the deal to the finish line, they work with a lot of different investors that just don't, it falls through. And so we got lucky in a sense of working with a broker who didn't have enough experience to ask us our experience. And so we're moving into the deal just acting, like we know what we're talking about. And that comes from educating ourselves and being able to talk through the numbers and being very specific about the deal we were looking for. Hey, we're looking up in this Oregon market for around $1 million price point, 12 to 20 units, strong value add. And so we were so specific on the deal criteria that I think the broker felt like we maybe knew a little bit more about what we were doing. And so he actually sent us all 4 deals after we closed that first deal with him and told him, and he was like, oh, I can't believe that was your first one. Like, let's do another one. And we ended up doing 3 more fairly quickly with him right after that. He just started giving us some good deals. But we kind of stumbled onto that market by chance, and ended up being really great for us.
Yeah, great. Why I ask is people get so hung up. Like, okay, I'm in California. I'm in a high cost of living market. Where do I invest? I said, literally, you just invest where you have a quote unquote unfair advantage.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was Oklahoma because I had a really good property manager there. So property managers make or break your deal. So I just said, okay, well, if I have this great property manager, that solves one part of the equation for me. I just got to find the deals. I think you are fortunate where you're able to find deals on LoopNet. And it's funny, like in my course in mentorship, I teach you go on LoopNet and Crexy and you're going to analyze 100 deals.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the 100 deals, I'm going to ask you the question, were there any good deals?
Mm-hmm.
Usually, as you alluded to, the answer is no, right? And then for brokers, you hit the nail on the head, right? My joke is brokers make you more broke. It's in the name. But, it's kind of like when you're starting off, there's no credibility, right? You don't have a track record with lenders. You don't have a track record with brokers. You don't have a track record with even investors if you're trying to raise money, right? So there's that initial learning curve. But then once you get that first deal, once you build that track record, people will just give you money naturally.
Yeah, I was actually really shocked at how, even just the single family homes in Atlanta, Georgia, although they weren't multifamily, that investors, when we could tell investors that we owned those, that it gave us that much more power in the conversations in a sense of like, okay, you guys own real estate, even though we had just bought them a couple months ago, like we're barely cash flowing on them type thing, but they just knew, okay, we're getting into it. We're doing it. We're actually making moves.
Yeah. So like you said, most people do not make moves, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most people are not like action oriented. People who gravitate towards real estate, like me and you, were typically action oriented, right? So we kind of like, dive out and then build the parachute on the way down. So love that. And I guess kind of my other point was most brokers, from at least my experience, have never brought me a good deal. As you're alluding to, they're usually shopping it through multiple investors, and it creates this huge bidding war, right? Like, hey, I'll make an offer of $1 million. They'll go, okay, counter offer, best and final, 1.1 million. Once again, counter offer, best and final. Eventually, you get to the point where it's maybe 1.5 million, and the deal doesn't make sense anymore, and you have to walk away, right? So, it's very fortunate, I would say, that you got a broker that you're able to establish a relationship with and actually bring you deals that actually pencil out. So I guess if you don't mind sharing, can we kind of deep dive into one of your deals and kind of what the numbers look like?
Yeah, definitely. We could dive into any and all of them. So we do, overall, we're projected to earn the same returns, similar returns for our investors. So we're always looking at around a 5-year hold for our investors. We're kind of doing a flip on these apartment buildings. We're looking for 100% return on investment. So we're looking to double our investors' money throughout the lifetime in the investment. So if they invest 50K, we're looking to give them that 50K plus another 50K on top of that back. We do our disbursements quarterly through cash flow. So looking anywhere between 6 to 9% cash on cash and AAR, average annualized return, the number you would want to compare to the stock market, we're looking anywhere between 15 to 20%. So we're looking at deals that kind of meet this return criteria for our investors. So the first deal that we did, $1 million property, 12 units up in Oregon. We raised we needed $350,000 to close it. So that's the 25% down payment plus additional money for reserves and repairs and maintenance. We went out capital raising, brand new capital raisers, just kind of feeling out with our friends and family, maybe sent an email to about 30 people in our lives. Saying, hey, this is kind of what we're doing. We bought these single family homes. We're looking to move into multifamily. We're going to buy a smaller apartment building. You want to come join us? To be honest, our network of friends and family don't have $50,000 to invest in real estate investing, which has led to the creation of Networth Nurse and the personal brand that I've created because of that. But that initial deal, we did have a couple from like a nurse I worked with, an aunt and uncle jumping in on that. We were set out to raise 350. We could only raise 250. So my husband and I, to get the deal to close, we eliminated our acquisition fee. So we took zero acquisition fee to make it work, and then also pulled from my retirement account at the time. This was 2020 during the height of COVID, and under the CARES Act, you could pull from your retirement account penalty free. So we took advantage of that and used it to get that deal to close.
Got it. No, love that mindset. And, what you shared is typical, right? Like when you're starting off as a syndicator, once again, you don't have a track record. So how you can make up for it is through your grit and perseverance, which is what you showed, right? So, okay, you raised 250. Most people can say, hey, I give up. I tried my best. At that point, you can actually wholesale the deal potentially too and make a little quick fee. But instead, you said, you know what? We've been chunking away 20% of our W-2s into this 401k, IRA, whatever. Now we're going to pull it out, or you can even use your IRA to invest as well if you want to, but you can pull it out and you basically cover the difference. So what's nice about that is you had skin in the game, right? Like people, the rap that people give against syndicators is they don't have any money in the game, but you literally funded at least 1/3 of the deal. You literally had skin in the game. So, that helps build trust too, to know that like, hey, like, what money do you have in the game? Because if you have money in the game, skin in the game, of course you're going to try to make the deal as successful as possible because you have the most to lose technically.
Yeah. And now even doing multiple deals, lenders really want to see that too. So lenders do want to see the general partnership team have some sort of skin in the game. And so, yeah, we've had to make money move in a lot of different ways in our lives, not having a lot of extra money to make it work, but it's always ended up working out well to kind of force ourselves into these situations, because that loan I'm taking out on my retirement at like a 4.2 interest rate, we're putting it in these real estate assets that are earning way more than that. So it's allowing us to pay down these loans and putting extra money into our pocket every month. And so for us, it was worth it to leverage that debt where other people might see that as risky.
Oh, I love that you mentioned that. So you basically became your own bank, right? You're borrowing your own money at 4.5%, which you're paying to yourself, and you're hoping that you can arbitrage a higher return. And typically, as you alluded to, real estate's going to be a bit higher for that. So in regards to the deal, was it more of a turnkey deal where you're just gradually raising rents, or was it kind of a deal where it's value add and you're kind of renovating units and then like raising the rent significantly? What did the deal look like?
Yeah, it was a strong value add. So rents were very low below market. They didn't need a lot of renovations to get rents up to market, and that was through talking to local property managers to come up with kind of that data. It was presented to us that there was an opportunity to turn a storage space into a studio unit, and so we went and looked at the property. We had engineers look at the property to determine that that was accurate. We put it into our budget. And when you can add additional units, it really skyrockets the NOI, the net operating income, because now you're generating a lot more income on this building. And so it was going to do wonders in our deal. And so going through it, we just made sure that that was going to work out. And then unfortunately, when we closed on the deal and our engineers went to pull permits at the city, they said we could absolutely not add an additional unit. I still remember where I was in the hospital when I got that email, and my heart sunk. I couldn't believe it. I was so frustrated. I felt like we had done everything right. We paid for the coaches, we vetted it with the engineers, like the broker told us this, and it was just so frustrating to be in that situation after feeling like we did everything right. But that was honestly just like the intro into real estate investing of like stuff goes wrong almost every day, and you're put in a position where you take care of it and you think of a solution. And I think a lot of my management career in nursing has helped me in this, in a sense of walking into the hospital as a manager, you're putting out fires all day. From the minute I walked in, my door would be open. I'd have doctors in there, I'd have nurses in there, I'd have my techs in there, just throwing their problems on my desk and having to deal with it. And so my husband and I have a really good attitude of like, when that happened, it was like, okay, no blaming, no pointing the fingers, no dwelling on this. Like, how can we make it? How do we make it work? And so we looked into those storage units. We ended up putting a couple thousand to make them a little bit nicer, and we ended up renting them each out for $70 a month, and there's 7 of them. So overall, we ended up doing better on the deal because we weren't now sinking that $30,000 to completely renovate this space into a unit. But it was a hard learning lesson.
Yeah, and no, thanks for sharing that. And that's why I tell people gain a multifamily, right? Like when I underwrite a deal in an apartment complex, yes, I underwrite for like 8 to 10% cash on cash return day one. But the moment you take over that apartment complex and you have 3 tenants leave immediately when there's a new owner, because it's typically common, they know I'm getting half the rents of what it should be. New owner's coming in, he's going to renovate these units. So what do? They stop paying for a little bit and they leave. And if you have 3 tenants do that, goodbye to your 10% cash on cash return, right? So
Yes.
it's very common. Like you said, this is what you planned, but the reality is you're going to get sucker hit a lot, right, from left field. And with you, yeah, it was permits. And, you know, California, Oregon, coastal states, notoriously difficult to get permits, right? That's why I kind of chose Oklahoma a little bit. It's a little bit more, you know, easier and friendly, but still a lot of delays, a lot of things out of your control. So, but despite that, you still had enough, you know, meat on the bone, you could say, to renovate these units, you know, probably a couple $1,000 to, you know, do, you know, turn them, make them rent ready, presentable, clean, functional, nice. And you could raise the rents by $70
Yep,
per
exactly.
unit. And it doesn't sound much, but you times that by, you know, 12 to 20 units, it starts to add up, and you do it every year gradually. So that's why I say with multifamily, people think that it's like, oh, you're making instant cash flow day one. I said, no, typically when value add, you're more forcing appreciation. Then you're going to do a huge cash out refinance or sale, depending on your exit strategy. Take out this huge lump sum of equity. At that point, it's going to cut your cash flow because your debt is higher. But then the next 5 years after that, when you're just gradually raising rents, that's when you start to get the cash flow. Because if you're raising it, you know, $50, you know, per unit, every year after that, that's when the cash flow starts to stack. So no, love that story that you shared there. I guess kind of my question for that deal, my final question is, I guess how'd you manage all that?
Yeah, a lot of work, a lot of learning through it, leaning on the experts, which would be the broker, the property manager, different contractors to really be the boots on the ground and give us a lot of information. Property managers are huge in terms of overseeing renovations, the ability to raise rents, managing tenants, extra fees. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, they can make or break a deal, and they're super important. I mean, we involve them in the process when we are looking at deals. Like if we're looking at deals even before we're about to put an offer on them, we're reaching out to property managers in the area to vet out our numbers, to double check them. Hey, we're looking to raise rents, this, that, this building, does this look feasible? And it's property managers that can quickly go drive by the building and say, hey, yeah, looking at this, those rents are way under rent. I could get in there and raise them this much. And then we bring them to the inspection. So they come out and walk every unit with us so they get a good idea of what they're kind of coming into. And so leveraging other people's skill sets in this space has been huge for us.
Oh man, that was music to my ears. And the reason for that is I always say, like you said, property managers make or break your deal. They will tell you immediately before you even underwrite the deal, is it a good area? If they say, no, we're not going to manage there whatsoever, stay away. Don't even waste your time. You can underwrite it just for practice. But if you're really serious and you're making offers and you're doing due diligence, you want to involve that property manager immediately, because they can go in, say, hey, you know what? You only need to spend this much money on renovations, and this is the rents you can get based on the market. And we're ignorant people in California, right? How do we know? Like, we might be too fancy where everything needs quartz countertops, granite, everything brand new, right? But in other markets, that may not be the case. So really love how you involve them in the whole process. That's why I advocate as well. When you're doing the property inspections, even if you're hiring a third-party inspector, bring your property manager there. Bring your general contractor there. If your property manager is your general contractor, of course you want them there, and you want them to bid out things for you so you can get a sense of how much things will cost.
Yep.
Right? Like, hey, we're going to have to repaint these kitchen cabinets. We're going to have to replace the shower kit. We're going to have to rip out this carpet, put in new LVP flooring, right? So you have a sense of what it is. And once you renovate one unit, it's copy and paste.
Yep.
Like, literally, I renovate one unit, all other my 50 units I own look exactly the same. Because it's easier for you, it's easier for the contractor, and you can buy in bulk. So it's like a win-win all around. And then on top of that, if you spend the initial time to renovate these units, what does that do in the future? You don't have to renovate them as much anymore unless the tenants tear them apart. But minus that, like, it's pretty much not much capex because you took care of all that up front. So I love how you involve that, and they usually are heavily involved. You might have to pay them additional fee on top of that if they help coordinate for you, but it's totally worth it because you can scale that way. So
exactly.
No, love that you shared that. So I feel like we touched the tip of the iceberg here. Would love to bring you on to deep dive a little bit more into kind of multifamily as well. So would love to bring you on for another episode if you'd be willing. And I guess to kind of finish us off, any kind of last, parting thoughts to new investors?
Yeah, no, definitely would be more than happy to record another episode with you. But I would just say if you're new to real estate investing and you're wanting to get started, start networking. Reach out to people who are doing what you want to be doing. This space is so awesome in a sense that we're all learning and growing together. We're all seeking out great investments. We're continuously growing. And so this community of real estate investors is so helpful. I have found coming into the space, and there's different ones that you could plug yourself into for sure. But yeah, if you see someone out there doing what you want to do, even if it's on social media, reach out to them, see kind of how they got started, learn their story. If you can add value to them in any way and kind of learn from their mistakes or what they're doing, it's very big in this space.
Okay, awesome. And speaking of networking, I guess how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, definitely. So Networth Nurse, I am on all social media accounts. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and yes, even TikTok. My website is networthnurse.co. We have an amazing Facebook group. I have tons of different resources for people. If you're interested in anything I've been chatting about, I would love to connect.
Awesome. And I'll drop your information down below in the comments so people can get a hold of you. Well, Savannah, thank you for hopping on. Very inspirational story. I learned a lot from this. I'm sure my audience will learn a lot from this. And I'm very excited for episode 2.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Stop.